at the beginning we did a very extensive test about what was the right look for this movie.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to the Italian Alps. I knew we had money. Right?
You're like, I'm going to do a test in the Italian Alps. Let's
I gotta
get real.
go to the mountains.
Yes.
Let's get real.
I can't do it without.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is the Cinematography for Actors podcast.
More than a podcast, Cinematography for Actors is a vibrant community devoted to bridging the gap between talent and crew. Each week, our show offers transparent, insightful conversations with industry leaders. We unveil the magic behind the scenes, from candid discussions about unique filmmaking processes to in-depth technical exploration. Join us in unraveling the intricacies of filmmaking one episode at a time. It's more than just cameras and lenses. We aim to inspire, educate, and empower as we peel back the curtain on the art of effective storytelling. Now on to the episode.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinematography for Actors podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Indiana Underhill, and I have Haley Royal with me.
Hi.
And a wonderful new friend that I met at Camera Image, and we always talk about Camera Image and how you should go there because it's great for education and community building, similar to what we do here, and that is Pedro Luque.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you for
welcome.
inviting me. Yeah.
Of course, DP of so many incredible films I know you've seen in theaters, but most recently, Society of the Snow, which is getting press absolutely everywhere, which is wild to see, from New York Times to billboards everywhere to my Instagram feed, Facebook, and just walking down the street, people talking about it.
Yeah. Actually, I was in this Thursday. Friday. I was in Mexico.
Yeah.
I was walking on the streets.
Yeah.
And I heard these ladies talking about it, and I was like slowing down a little bit to see if I could catch anything. They
I love that.
talking like, oh, they spent 72 days in the snow and this and that. It was pretty interesting. I felt like part of the popular culture for a second.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you very much are, and it's crazy. Haley was just talking about a friend of ours watching it with her mom.
Yes. Oh, yeah. A friend of ours tried to watch it with her mother, and they had to turn it off because her mother remembers the crash, and it was just way too visceral and too traumatizing for her to watch a reenactment.
Yeah,
It is a tough one. I was in December last year. We had a premiere in Montevideo, right? In the city where I'm from. I'm from Uruguay, and this is where these people that crashed in the Andes are from, right? So we had this big premiere. It was for the family and also for the survivors and the families of the people that died in the mountain. And I decided to take my daughter, her name is Juana, and she's 11 years old. And I was like, maybe she's a little bit too young, but she was excited. And it's like, and she never saw any of my movies because they're usually rated R
and
right?
stuff. Yeah.
Or
or
like
explicit. Yeah.
So so I was talking with my sister, and it's like, I have a niece, she's 13, and they're friends. It's like, should I take Juana and Emma if they want to come and see the movie? And she was like, listen, we were that age when Alive came out. Alive is the previous movie that was made about this story.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I take Juana, and I'm covering her eyes of some of the scenes. But at one point, there's a death in there, and it's the death of the sister of Nando. This is part of the story. It's not a spoiler. So it's Nando, one of the characters, is there holding her dying sister, and Juana goes like, wait, is Nando here? And I'm like, yeah, Juana, he's right there, like behind us.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she looks around, sees Nando, and looks at me and kind of sinks in her that this is a real story and that we are watching a reenactment of the death of your sister for that guy. And that's the thing. It's really strong,
I know.
when you
Oh my
realize
God.
that this actually happened, and the survivors are really like candid about it, that for them was like a big hit to see this thing.
Yeah.
I was listening to one of the guys today, and he was saying like he didn't sleep for 3 days before watching the movie, and then he didn't sleep for 3 days after because he was like, they took me back to the mountain, and it's a tough one for them.
I can't even imagine.
Definitely a tough one.
And and this is like an epic movie. It's a crazy adventure. I mean, it's an adventure, but it's not, one that one chooses to have. But and the way you shot it, we'll get into, but just like it's 71 or 72 days.
72 days.
72 days that they were there, and all of the stuff that happens, and it just keeps kind of spiraling and I can't even imagine the power of we were watching the behind the scenes documentary before you got here as well, and we saw that your director was like crying at one of the moments and getting emotional because it's just like you guys probably were in it with them for so much of it, and
it was not only the story itself, right, with all the things that happen, right, but also how hard it was for us to bring that story to the screen. And also because we wanted to be as real as we could, part of that is that you shoot in the real elements, right? Because that ends up, communicating a different thing. When you see, I was talking with someone the other day about the avalanche scene that we may talk later. But when I started to see snow flying and hitting the lens, I was like, leave that as is, because fake snow doesn't stick to the lens like that. Right. And that's when you tell, okay, this is real. And it was really tough for us, like waking up every day and having to climb this mountain, go to the set and, figure out what was going on. And it was cold and we were tired and there's a lot of days. So on top of the story we were telling, there was that kind of difficulties. And also the actors were really communicating what was going on. So I found myself crying in front of the monitor more than once. Totally. I would say because also I was suffering my own stuff. I was away from my family, not alone because I had my crew family, but kind of alone. Yeah. So and having to deliver a degree of constant focusing and that every day without losing your own naivety or your own surprise and your own freshness, because you can if you're burnt and you just don't care, you can tell on screen, right?
For sure.
And that goes for the camera operator and the dolly grips, and all these people that have actually a hand on what's going on the story. So keeping that up, and it was so tough that I was more than once I was sobbing in front of the monitor.
I would be too. It's a pretty insane movie, and then I can't even imagine the behind the scenes of actually having to put it together.
I mean, just for a little bit of context for anyone who's listening doesn't know, the crew shot in the Sierra Nevadas at the highest point and had to live in a small isolated village because it was during COVID.
It was we started in January 2022. So it wasn't in the middle of it, but it was kind of recent. And also actually when we started, the director got COVID. We had to shoot, we didn't know what to do. We had to shoot a lot of stuff, and half of the actors had COVID, so we had doubles, and actually served as a rehearsal of what was coming.
Yeah.
But
did you get sick?
No. Not that time. I got sick a year after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your body was finally okay, give in, we're done work. Yeah.
I lost 25 pounds though shooting this movie, and I was eating. I mean, the actors were on a strict diet, and they were losing weight. Some of these guys lost 60 pounds, 50 pounds. They were kind of competing on each other, hey, how much
who can get skinniest while we're on this mountain?
Yeah, and it was tough. But also we went to the Andes Mountains 3 times. Wow. Right, and that's, I think that's the hardest.
Right.
But for me, all of this, going to the mountain, going to the Andes Mountains, and having to work in this challenging environment, I think it was fun, right? And it's not the hardest part.
Right.
I think the hardest part is to be away from your family, that the emotional part, and also giving yourself into something, and trying to honor the story with love and passion, and not to be a coward on the images you create, just having to push and push to get something expressive.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that was extremely, tangible was the emotional connection between the camera and the audience and the characters. You had a huge ensemble cast that you're with the whole time. But Can you talk to us about that building the relationship of camera to actor to create character?
Yeah. So for me, this work, it's about people, right? It's a lot of us that we spend a lot of time together, right? And we are usually working in stressful conditions.
Yeah.
Sometimes challenging, as the environment is challenging, as in this movie was. It was cold, it was like difficult.
Yeah.
So for me, the most important thing is the human group, right? Like to have people that make you feel comfortable, that also are good people, that are vulnerable, and then can, like generate that more of a human thing that's a little bit more relatable and a little bit more intimate in a way. Obviously, you have to deliver, so it's not that we're having a great time and what we're producing is horrible. Right? You got to, and usually we all have different like abilities and different like things that we shine on, right? Like the operators, the gaffer, the electrician. So I take great care of like knowing everybody's names and knowing who they are for real, not just you're a piece of this machinery.
Of course,
right? And when you do that, that gets communicated to the rest of the people. So I try to choose people that I know can have that connection with another human.
Right.
So our two camera operators, Juanjo and Manu, one's a Spaniard operator I worked before with, and Manu is Uruguayan. He lives in LA, and we've been working together for a long time. Sometimes I want to have his energy on the set, but sometimes his B camera, because he's not an A camera person, he's more like different, wilder character. But sometimes he does second unit cinematography for me, or I know that these guys are like super approachable and super nice, and the communication between the actor and the camera, which is the first person that's like on the line, right next to them, sometimes doing the same physical things, right? Like this guy is like, I don't know, kneeling. The camera kneels with this guy. They're crouching. They have to drag themselves together, and they like physically connected almost. And in the motion too, because it's like we're here. We are really close one to each other. So I think that gets communicated by the way you treat everybody, and obviously myself, I go there and talk with the actors, and I go there and like find a shot and in a teamwork way, right? Because I understand how difficult it is for the actors to do all the stuff they do.
What they're asked of.
They do a lot.
No,
it's like not only they have to hit some marks or look that way, or take care of certain physical cues that they give with their body, but also they have to emote.
They have to also
heavily
be their emotions.
Exactly. And if you don't have a safe environment in which we all are capable of doing that, you cannot expect that suddenly, someone, obviously, and most of the time the actors are really talented and they can pull some stuff that's incredible. But
How much of the rehearsal process were you there for? Because I did notice that there were some like bonding exercises and things happening.
This was a particular movie in that sense. First of all, we had actors that didn't have much experience. Yes. But a lot of them had some experience. Like the main character had done a movie before. Yeah. Then there are a couple more that were in more than one movie. And then we had some Disney Channel actors, and then like Argentinian Disney Channel. Yeah. Right? Okay. And some guys that didn't do anything. There was one of the guys was a rugby player, and that's it.
Wow.
And so having this ensemble of like unknown actors. First of all, they were like super eager. Like they had a lot of drive. And also we could have them for a long time before we started shooting. Right. So we had them for 2 months. We created a mock-up of the fuselage, with some of the elements that they were going to have. And I was trying to go there as much as I could as a DP, because I was seeing things happening that were really interesting. And there was a thing about framing all these people.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you frame 20 characters and, you know, still have something that's aesthetically expressive? You know, you have your eye goes through all these faces. You know, how much time you need to read them, how much, how do you generate, you know, like these importances or like
the psychology around it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting.
Wow.
And when you're framing all of these actors together, especially during like a longer scene, are you using any kind of like improvisation technique to make sure that everything is happening and you're able to catch all the things that you want?
Like improvisation techniques, the actors or
With
me myself? I would improvise all the time.
Together
Yeah.
as a team. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were some scenes that were like super planned, right? Like the plane crash.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
You can't,
Stunts
I
and
mean,
stuff, yeah.
the guys are sitting and, you know, it's technical. It was a technically difficult scene to plan. But then, like, these guys, the actors were like really charged in the sense like their intuition was really charged with all that happened. They had a big investigation about their characters. They spent time with the survivors. They spent time with the families of the deceased.
Yeah.
So they were ready to go. So like the scene where they know that they're not being searched for anymore, that was a little bit of an improvisation. We went like, okay, this is the day that this happens. What happens? What do you mean? What happens with you? And that generated a whole thing that was, chaos that we had captured with the camera. We decided to go with very wide lenses, very shallow, and it generated like a nightmarish thing. Even that chaos that was happening with them, you know, suddenly one of the guys runs away. You know, he's like, I want to get out.
Yeah.
And he runs and runs and runs, and another guy catches him, and they drop to the ground. And so there were both. You know, we had big improvisation moments, and then we had like really planned moments. But at the same time, it's really difficult to block a scene with 20 people.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, and also because these were like kids, you know, like we could tell them what to do more precisely and some of the stuff. Also, we had such a great director, you know, that not only as a storyteller, but as a human being, he's a great guy. So we could manage to, you know, because for me as a cinematographer, I had to light all these faces, and sometimes it was a matter of like, oh, yo, sit, you know, a little bit forward, so you catch this window.
Can you catch your light a little bit?
Totally. And are those like the constant conversations you're having with newer actors too, of on that set especially, because you're constantly they're probably getting used to that relationship with you where you're like, okay, should I get into the light a little, you know? But at the beginning, is there a conversation that you're having where you're telling them, you know, we're shooting on wide lenses, we're going to be pretty close to you, you know, and also don't lean too far forward because of close focus, or, you know, if the lighting is here, I'm sure like lens, we can't come around and do it because the light will block.
Exactly.
Okay. So is that kind of the conversations you had to prep for?
One of the things I always tell, I work with Susan Sarandon and I work with these guys. So, and it doesn't change, you know, and I always tell them, you know, myself personally, the DP, it's more like a political thing.
Totally.
Right? About how's the shot exactly. Because, you know, more seasoned actors, they know exactly to not waste energy on some other parts that may not be on the screen. Or like, the typical one is like, oh, I got a super close-up of you, and you have to turn around. You know, usually we turn around like this.
Yes.
You know, but in a close-up, you have to turn around like this.
Yeah, not move your body at all.
So
slowly
isolate the chambers of your body. Yes,
so
absolutely.
Some of these guys, like Numa, the guy that plays Numa, Enzo had like like impeccable technique.
Wow.
It was like surprisingly good. And he knew exactly, you know, how the light was hitting his face and how to catch half of a shadow. He was fantastic.
That's so cool.
Some other guys were like wilder. You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, nobody was born knowing it all. So it's just like, I was like, listen, this is what's going on. You know, like if you turn like this, you know, you better probably lose you. You know, do you want to be in the picture?
Or
do you want to be in this movie or not?
Exactly. No, but I think that relationship is very important, you know, to get close to the actor and tell them what's going to happen.
Okay, we are stoked to shout out our audio sponsor, Deity Microphones. Their S-Mic 2 Pro shotgun mics have impeccable sound clarity, directionality, headphone monitoring, and a user-friendly design. And we're proud to launch our studio with them. Our goal is to bring you educational gems every episode, and with these mics, you can listen to the best quality audio possible wherever you are. To learn more about using Deity mics for your own podcasting, voiceover, or filming needs, go to deitymic.com.
And are you always, with new directors you work with, are you always feeling out that space of like, should I come to you before giving that note? Or are you going up to the actors and from the beginning and going, how are you building that relationship out with your director?
It's a really good question. Usually, I kind of know by experience what's my place and what are the things that I can say.
Yeah.
Talking about the first days of shoot where we maybe don't know each other that well.
Totally.
Right? Like, I know that there's some stuff that's like up to me and me only, and I know exactly, that I can say some of the stuff. Then we generate a different relationship with the actors and with the director. And I never say a note about acting.
No, performance. Yeah,
but
for sure.
I may say to the director something that I feel like as a personal feeling, not from the cinematographer standpoint, but it's more like, this is what I feel, and this or that, what do you think?
Yeah.
But I think it also depends on the director you're working with, right? There's some directors that don't care or don't have an idea about camera either.
They just give it to you and they're like, I trust you. Let's talk about it. Yeah.
I had this idea, and that becomes a shot. And there are other directors that are way more specific with camera notes. Right?
Yeah. And I know Haley wants to talk. So I have one more question about this before I know you want to talk about rubber suitcases and stuff and the avalanche. But let's talk about those close wide lenses for some of those scenes. I know you were shooting Panavision. Were you diopters or were you just working with the close focus of the lens?
I mean, this was at the beginning we did a very extensive test about what was the right look for this movie. So I ended up going to the Italian Alps. I knew we had money. Right?
You're like, I'm going to do a test in the Italian Alps. Let's
I gotta
get real.
go to the mountains. Let's get real.
I can't do it without.
Exactly. So I had that. I was lucky enough to bring full crew to the Italian Alps. We went up in the mountain, and I took like a Venice, red, an LF, a 65.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, and I knew that I had to hit a certain amount of pixels also, and then we brought like ARRI lenses for the 65.
Yes.
Super speeds, Leicas.
Yeah.
Cooks, and also Panavision, anamorphics, sphericals, and I did a test with all the cameras. We put it together and we blind tested. I don't know if that's a word, but
it is.
With the director.
Great.
And I knew what I liked, right? And when we saw it, we chose the same thing, which was this Panavision anamorphic T series expanded for LF.
Yeah.
And then I had a set of Panaspeeds because some of the stuff had to be shot on spherical.
Yeah.
And then I had like specialty lenses, like there's a 12 millimeter lens from ARRI. I think it's a Supreme Prime or a Signature Prime.
It's like is it the rectilinear one where it's corrected on the sides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that's a piece of optical engineering that's
amazing.
Like amazing.
Yeah.
So we had that lens. And also we had like the Loa probe lens,
Oh, wow.
A piece of
lens,
that's like crazy, but it has such a unique expressive capability that doesn't give you anything else.
Yep.
So it was like, whatever. And I'm not very dogmatic about that. But what ended up happening with those wides and close shots, it was that internally we felt that we needed to be close. When we opened the door, the walls of this fuselage to shoot from the outside, it felt fake.
Right.
You could tell.
So you were like, the balls don't move. We need to be with them in it, right next to them. Yeah.
And
because the audience will know.
we could have a shot like this with 150 lens, millimeter lens.
But then you feel way too far.
But then you feel that
and you're outside of the plane technically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's something you feel about it.
Yeah.
And I always remember that movie, The Room, that they did, like, they didn't take any wall to shoot this thing.
Yeah.
Because you felt it. And in the end, ends up, adding to this whole feeling.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I was like watching it, and it has a really great grade as well with like the look you've created and stuff, and that kind of 70s desaturated with a little warmth sometimes, and it's really fun. But I remember I was looking at some of the shots where you're wide, super close, and I'm just like, God, the technical restraint.
And also it's diopters, a lot of diopters.
Okay,
we
I was
will
gonna
go
say,
+2, +3 on a 28 millimeter anamorphic lens.
Wow.
So it was like heavy diopter, and I mean, we had we didn't have a camera operator that would say like, oh no, the shot is from here, here.
Yeah.
It's like, listen, you have a +2, just
go for it.
Stay in that range, right? Don't give me an out of focus shot because I'm not going to use it. Because
you only have like this amount to move within.
Exactly.
And
also the first assistant camera, Guillem Huertas, he did such an amazing job. There's some shots on this movie that are like such an amazing focus pull.
Yeah.
It's when you're like, wow. Because sometimes we will either go from, the iris was at T22 because I wanted everything sharp, right? Because it's a group movie, and I get tired of all this softness in the backgrounds, and I wanted to see. But then we will have expressively a shot that was wide open with like a pana speed that's 1/4 for full format on a 35 millimeter lens. It's tricky, man, to hit that sharpness. I mean, the guy on a techno crane moving through people.
Yeah,
right?
I think the variety of that design was so great for. It's a long movie, right? Like it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, 2:20 or something.
Yeah. And you're with it the whole time, and I think it's because there's such a dynamic story, but also the visuals going from those two aesthetics. You're with it.
The thing that worried me at first, it was like
jumping between that.
No. Okay, I have a movie that happens inside a fuselage that's dark in the middle of a white mountain.
How do we not make it boring, or how do we have variety?
How do we keep this thing moving? Having an emotional journey that you go like, okay, this moment is this and this,
right?
And also you identify different parts of the movie and different parts of the story and different parts of the weather, and. Going to the actual Andes Mountains helped me on understanding that I didn't know anything, and that the mountain changes completely all the time and has several infinite combinations of possible lights.
Yeah.
And then I understood. Okay, all right. I make a mental map that I write. It's not mental; it's on the paper.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, this is where we're going through, and also there is some crazy stuff, like on the hunger moment when they're like dying of hunger.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they're discussing a little weird stuff, or we remember the guy that eats his own
scab. Yeah.
That's an orange scene.
Yeah.
Kind of sickly orange inside the fuselage.
Yes.
And like it was weird, and I was like, all right, let's hope this works.
Yeah.
Right?
Dude, we've all been there on set where we're all making a mental note of like, okay, so the sun right now would probably be here. Because if you're on like a mountain in all white, you know what I mean? You're just kind of like, well, we've shot that way already. So if we move that way, like for variety, we covered it or we did, and we all have notes like as DPs or like anyone on crew, we probably all have those maps where we're kind of like, yep, we've done that. We've been there. Yeah. What is the rule around there? Okay, great. And just getting ourselves oriented for story and cutting, And
suddenly you go, and you had 3 units working with me. So I was main unit, and then I had a second unit, and then I had a third unit that was a mountain unit. And there's like the first expedition they do, that's Numa, Cervino, and Maspons. It has shots made by the 3 units on 4 different places. Wow. So there's shots in the Andes Mountains, shots in the Sierra Nevada mountain range, shots in the Sierra Nevada fuselage set, shot on a backlot we had like lower in the mountain, and shots 5 places, and shots inside the stage. And that had to match, right? And be part of the same story.
Lighting has to be the same way. You have to make sure that like lensing can be varied enough, but also match. And oh God,
So for me, that was kind of the more stressful part. But at the same time, it's like, all right, there's leeway, you know, and also, you know, you gotta trust your team. And you gotta trust the choices you made before, you know, how these lenses are gonna be, you know, like tying this scene together, or like how, the height of the sun in the sky. And then for that, there's a pretty crazy thing. That's the VFX company. We asked them if they could provide us with a 3D program, like a computer game that had, you know, like the Andes Mountains, the Sierra Nevada mountains, and the backlot we had with the fuselage in the same place, but changing the environment.
In Unreal? Was it in Unreal?
On Unreal, So you could change the lens, the time of day, and it would automatically go either like Southern Hemisphere for the Andes or Sierra Nevada.
Smart.
Wow.
And with that, we could do some of, you know, pre-vis, and it's like, okay, it's better to shoot this scene, you know, in the Andes Mountains happens at 10 a.m., so in Sierra Nevada, it should be like at 4 p.m., and in the backlot, it should be shot at 7, or whatever, you know, like 10 a.m. again. So, and they will tell me, like, I'm going to be on this side of the hill, of the mountain.
Yeah.
All right, so you should be shooting southwards, right? And at this time of the day. And with those notes, the other DPs will go like, okay, I got it. This, that. And then they solve all the little issues that they may have, you know, but the macro thing had to be,
definitely.
And you shot chronologically, so it's not like you can be like, oh, it's 4 now, let's jump back to this thing that we needed. You have to wait for the next day or the next time.
And also it's like, we started the shoot after the crash, right? They wake up and all that, and Numa waking up and all that stuff. It's the beginning, and then we kept on shooting until the rescue. And what happens is that at one point you run out of interior scenes, but you cannot go up to in the mountains to shoot this exterior because there's a big storm.
Right.
And so there's a scene like when Numa is talking with these big spoilers in this podcast.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. We'll put a spoiler.
We'll pull it into
the
spoiler.
Anyway, it's the movie. It's gonna work anyway, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
you haven't seen it by now.
You're out. You're not here. Yeah.
There's a scene which is like a regular mundane conversation. It ends up being super deep, but between the guy and the Numa, and we shot the wide shot in Sierra Nevada, and it has like the background was changed for the Andes Mountains, but then we couldn't shoot anymore because there was a big storm coming, and we ended up shooting that scene on the LED screen.
Oh, God.
And it's an exterior cloudy scene.
Were you on a volume?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
So we kind of built a volume. It was 90 feet long screen by 20 feet high. And it didn't envelope the fuselage completely, but it was like a J. Right? And then we had like 150 sky panels and then another stuff like that. But it proved incredibly handy. Sometimes we will like, okay, I need this. When they wake up in the top of the mountain, that's the volume.
Oh, great. I just finished my first virtual production shoot a few months ago, and learning that workflow with Unreal and being able to like create that world out and start to like, once again, create that map, that mind map, and be able to be like, okay, if the sun's rising there, we would see it. And I can't imagine mixing that with like mountains in real life too, because it would really be a helpful cue. And then you could also pair it up later with the stuff that you're missing with this, and you just move the sun with a cursor, you know. You're just like, what am I?
It's crazy. We ended up putting a light where the sun was. And it works perfectly. It's wonderful.
My God. Now I know.
Can we please
talk
about
rubber
avalanche?
luggage?
Yes. Okay. Snow cannons, real snow cannons. Like for a lot of the time they're using, you know, artificial snow. That's also, they had a cool thing where they could raise and lower the fuselage, so like the snow could be higher one day or lower.
That was a backlot.
Oh my gosh, just like an engineering feat.
Totally.
But okay, so real snow cannons, wind cannons, and then they actually shot this stuff at the actors. And of course, like in an avalanche, suitcases are going to fly around. So they had to use rubber. what were the rubber suitcases actually? Were they like foam rubber?
Yeah, like, I mean, these are like work of artists, right? That they can copy almost anything you create in foam, painted perfectly.
Okay.
Like guns, like that sofa. I don't know a bottle of water, but I'm sure they cool.
Someone can figure out.
They'll work on it.
They were soft.
They were soft, and it wasn't a wall. So we had like, say, 80% of the suitcases there.
Okay.
A lot of soft stuff that wouldn't hurt you. Also, the guys are covered, so the guys that are closer to the line may have a special cover so they don't get hit. You know, in the end, like on the other end of the fuselage where the snow hits later, you don't need that much. Yeah. Also, the reactions had to be real. It's not that they were like looking at the thing coming. They could cover themselves. Still risky.
They would probably want to cover themselves.
Oh,
because,
totally,
how fast are those cannons shooting?
Oh my God, they got so scared, these kids, when that hit.
I bet.
It was a big explosion.
I mean, snow hurts. Just snow coming at, like, if you've been in a snowstorm, it's painful.
It was part real snow and part cellulose.
Okay. Wow.
So it's lighter, like paper.
Yeah.
Because snow can hit and can hurt you. It's rough. And then we had this weird hydraulic system for covering the windows. Yeah. There was like a curtain that with a press of a button would go like.
Wow.
Because that was part of the
so
effect,
it's going by the windows.
Yeah.
So technically, how are you communicating with these actors, and what do you need from them? Because they're still, I mean, truly, I'm sure, actually pretty afraid. And also remembering that they're acting, also remembering that there's a camera that has to see at least some of them. Yeah. What are you talking about before this happens?
So a lot of the stuff, the physical stuff about this movie was given by the environment, right? So I heard them talking about, like, listen, you don't have to act as you're cold because you are cold.
You're actually free.
You don't have to act as you're hungry because you are hungry. So for them, I think the physical aspects of this movie were easier in the emotional sense because you're just reacting to what's going on. And in that part, it's the part that they're like kind of happier in the movie. So, we told them, listen, this is gonna be rough, man. It's like we did a little rehearsal without them, you know, like with the cameras already in place. You know, this is what's gonna happen. Then, like, big reset. Imagine, like, couple hours reset for that thing while we were shooting something else. Right. But that's like real reactions. That's it. And then when they actually get into the avalanche and they are under the snow. We had to build, you know, like a fake snow level for the fuselage that actually left empty space under. And then on top of that, there was like a foot and a half of snow. And there were these little like plugs that you could take out and the actor would like put his face there. Yeah.
Right, because you had a lot of like close-ups of each of them coming out of the snow.
And that's real snow.
Wow.
And then there was a lot of also dummies for the corpses of the ones that die. Yeah. And there's always, in filmmaking, there's always this magic act about mixing techniques and distracting you somehow so you don't see my hand, you know, like moving the strings. Yeah. And in this movie, that happens a lot. There's a lot of different techniques mixed together, right? Because you have the mountains in the background are CG, but they're like based on real photos. So they don't look 3D, but at the same time, they're put there, right? But at the same time, you have a lot of like a mile of snow before that, then that's real snow. And then on top of all this thing, you have a color correction, of course, and then we printed this movie on film, and that gives a different, you know, patina to the whole image. Yes. So in between all these elements, you get confused and you just believe it. You can just watch. Yeah. So in the avalanche, it's also the same in the different things. You know, like you have like, we have real snow plus platform, plus the lenses are like all fogged up, and fogged up, and there's like real snow on the glass, and you mix real people with the dummies, and the cold is real because there's no way if you put so much ice inside a thing, it's a fridge.
It's gonna be cold,
right? And so it's like, and also it's like, okay, we have a big shot that the camera goes 180, and that's one of the things we wanted to actually show the whole space. But at the same time, we had to build 3 other little sets that were like just a hole with snow, and second unit was shooting constantly, trying to get that little tiny piece of action that made it to the movie.
Wow.
That's the moment that he cannot breathe for real for a second, and suddenly it gets covered. I don't know, like little things, but it's extensive, no? You gotta do a lot, and in all that thing that you're doing, you're gonna grab that little piece.
Yeah. What sort of protection does the gear need in this, like in specifically in something with cannons? Like, what kind of wear is that putting on the gear, and what are you doing to protect it?
Nothing too special. I mean, like the cameras cannot get that cold because they can shut down. Usually the Alexa holds up very well.
Okay.
The lenses cannot have sudden changes of temperature, right? Because if you have a lens that's been sitting in a hot space, when you take it outside, it fogs. Or if you have a cold lens and then you take it to a warm space, water condensates on it and freezes and it's unusable. So it's that kind of stuff that needs a little bit of preparation. Don't put the lenses in a warm space. Just let them cold. That's it.
Keep them out.
But then sometimes the camera was like a little bit too warm, and the temperature difference between the sensor and the rear element of the lens fogs the rear element of the lens, which is worse because you gotta take it out to clean it. And then, but like in the Avalanche, the cameras were cold. They had a plastic bag on top of them, so actual snow doesn't fall inside the fan. But there was no room for anyone, so the operators were cleaning the lens as they were going.
Now let's talk about like logistics from your side, 'cause there's so much. I'm having like a pit in my stomach thinking about the movie because I just watched it so recently yesterday, and it's just like I was sobbing at the end and like needed like a breather before going to bed, and so I'm just having like a pit in my stomach talking about the characters because it was so visceral, and I think that's like an accomplishment for your whole team, obviously, of being able to portray that. But from the logistics standpoint, when you signed on for the film, what were you most nervous about?
What was I thinking about?
And like 2, what was your plan of action for like prep? How do you start prepping something at this scale?
Well, at the beginning, it was like when they came to me with this movie, I was working a lot and I was like a little bit tired, but it was one of those stories that, first of all, it's like I'm from that country, and it's very rare. It's such a small place that it's very rare that you get the opportunity of telling a story that's universal,
right?
And so well made, with some money, with a really good director,
right?
So it was like, man, I gotta do this.
For sure.
This is the movie I have to shoot. And then you have to rely on your team. We had a great location manager, great first AD. The directorial team was great, and the production design comes up with a lot of solutions for all the stuff that you need to shoot, right? So that good team kind of has you covered in a lot of the logistical then production, right? I need a crane on top of that mountain, and they will go like, no, you're crazy, and then it's like, no, maybe, which kind of crane? And like there's room for discussions, right? But clearly, I'm a DP. I know about logistics, but I'm no genius.
Right. And
sometimes I get driven by different objectives, totally. Just making a more, appealing picture.
Totally.
So I think there's a lot of diplomacy that you have to exercise, about, listen, no, you cannot bring the 3 zooms to the mountain.
Right.
And unless you really need them, right?
Yeah.
But then if you make these people carry these zooms,
Yeah.
and then you don't need them.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh man.
You got to
at
save
least
your
say
favors.
sorry.
Yeah, save your favors
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Especially for such a long shoot.
Yeah, bigger battles.
Yeah. And then was this the largest movie you've done thus far? Or
The largest in size, it's similar to The Girl in the Spider's Web.
Right.
In terms of money.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think if this movie was shot like in Hollywood, it would have been way more expensive.
Totally.
You know, obviously we didn't have a big above the line budget because these were kids that were starting, so they had regular money, you know, not crazy Hollywood money.
For sure.
But in the other senses, like emotionally, the shooting days, we shot 140 days without counting the 20 days we spent on the Andes Mountains at the beginning, without the helicopter days that we had in the Andes Mountains.
It's crazy.
So I think that The Girl in the Spider's Web was 85 days, which is a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But this was way bigger.
Yeah.
And yeah, probably the largest in terms of how many people worked on. No doubt.
Wow. And what was it like, you know, being from Uruguay and been in Los Angeles for just over a decade, 15 years or so? 11 years. 11 years. Yeah. So just over a decade. What was it like to represent like your culture in cinema for such a wide audience that's now seeing it? What does that feel like? And what was it like to make?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't put too much thought on it because I tackled this movie as I do with any other movie because that's the way I am. Yeah. So I mean, obviously the Uruguayan factor, it's there, but it was more like, oh yeah, wait, that part of dialogue, you don't say that in Uruguay. Right. You say it in Argentina, which is like such a nuance difference. Right. Right. It's
but
like
people pick
we
up on
realize,
it probably. Yeah.
And also on the way I shot, you know, like my country, which is this is our Bayona's words, but he said something like, I didn't want to have a foreigner's eye on this country. Like the typical example would be like how foreigners shoot Mexico and everything is warm.
It's like the wash of color that
exactly.
no one asked for, but is now somehow this thing.
Yeah, this is
generally
Mexico.
the Middle East.
Exactly, Middle East too. Yeah. So I think that was part of the drive, you know, about Bayona's like wanting me to shoot this thing. But I guess that foreign eye or that, you know, like representing my own culture in a movie, it always appears in one way or the other because that's how I am. Mm-hmm. It's not weirdly exotic, I think. Yeah. But that's my feeling because for me that's normality, let's say.
It's also a period piece.
It is also
right?
a period
So it's like
piece.
you're going back in time before you were born.
I love period.
And so you're mixing the stuff you know and the stuff that you read about.
Totally, it's meta.
Yeah, totally. So we met at Camerimage because I really loved your pants.
I brought them today.
Yeah, I know you wore
great.
them.
Are these the ones?
Yeah.
I just keep thinking that these are great pants.
I know. They're
also fast bunny socks.
Oh yeah.
That's so fun.
Super fast bunny.
Yeah. I became old enough to wear these things and being ridiculous without, you know, like caring
without
about
it being weird.
Yeah.
It's now just your style.
Sometimes I feel like a little bit like I could work at an ad agency, but it's okay.
You're like, you kind of are like, you could do anything you want because you're a DP and you can get away with it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, like, also how cool to be your kid and be like, my dad wears cool bunny socks. Yeah. You know, like,
you know what?
Awesome.
Actually, I went to pick up my daughter yesterday at some friends, and I get in there, and it's like, Juana looks at me, and it's like, Dad, such a character. What's going on?
You're such a character.
The mustache, the glasses, the hat. Like,
who do you think you are?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I thought I was cool. No, you're such a character.
Yeah, your kids will knock you down. Yeah.
Lord, yeah.
But we met over the pants because I love a good utility pant.
Yeah.
And you're saying they're from Mexico and they're from a train. They're like train pants. Is that
yeah,
right?
Apparently they're like French train workers.
French train workers.
But was bought in a vintage store in Mexico.
Okay, so I remember the history because I remember a good pant.
I always wanted these, and I found them, and I said, like, I don't think they're gonna fit, and they fit so perfectly that I ended up buying.
Yeah. And so we met like at the Netflix ASC party where you were promoting Society of the Snow, and you were running to the Q&A for it. And I remember just being like, I was like, oh, what movie are you here with? And you're like, Society of the Snow, and I'm like, that's great. I haven't heard of it. I can't wait to learn. I'll check it out. Check it out
with your cute little movie.
Yeah, and then we get back to LA because I was like, let's hang sometime, and we get back to LA, and I remember I was just like started seeing it everywhere from that point on. Yeah. And so as like from the DP perspective, because we know from actors and from directors and producers, they're promoting that work all the time. From the DP perspective, from the amount of press that this film is kind of like in at the moment in awards season, and you guys, congrats, you got nominated.
Thank you.
The film for Best Foreign Feature, International Feature for the Oscars, which is amazing. What's it like from a DP perspective having to promote a film to this scale?
So, it's great.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah. Right? They send you a car and they take you wherever you need to go. So it's like effortless. I have no trouble talking about the movie I shot because it was really a big sacrifice, and I'm like happy to, like answer any question about it.
Yeah.
Usually, I think DPs end up hiring publicists, right? I didn't, because Netflix has its own team, and I think they did a great job, you know. And but it's kind of weird. It humbles you that so many people see the movie and so many people like it, and they have like genuine questions about it, and yeah, at one point also you even generate a discourse about it, right? You and you start understanding why did you do this or that thing, or why did you make that decision that way, and it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Is it contractual? Do you have to do it?
No.
Jinx.
Is that what you were going to ask? Because for actors it is, right?
It is. Yeah. I was like, is it contractual? And are you not supposed to take other work during the campaign?
No. I mean, they tell you you're going to be around. We can make a schedule.
Oh,
and it's
cool.
like, I'm in town. Let's have a schedule for it.
Okay, that's cool.
And it's not contractual at all. I don't get paid. But I get to see all these theaters and people that are watching the movie, you know.
Oh, it's so wonderful. We have to wrap things up, but I'm so excited. We were able to get together.
Yeah, this is great. I have to congratulate you both. I think it's amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. I am very excited for us to rewatch the film together one time, because I know you're like, me and her are very opposite watchers of
Indy
movies.
knows I'm a crier.
Yeah, you're a crier.
So
and
the fact
I
that you
sobbed,
cried.
and I sobbed. So I know
so
that
you're the tough one. It's like bad cop, good cop.
Oh yeah, she's real
tough
tough
one in front of people. Softly when I'm alone. Need to get my cry quota in today. Yeah, no. But I am really, really, really stoked to have you on our couch with us and to talk about this movie.
Thank you so much.
And like I say to everyone, you got to go to Camera Homage because you just meet so many incredible people. You get new pant recommendations, and then you get to watch a great film on top of it. So thank you so much. And we can't wait to have you back and to come to some of our workshops we have coming up.
Of course.
You rock.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pedro.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Join us in bridging the gap between talent and crew. Start by subscribing on your preferred podcast platform, sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on vendor discounts, community events, and new podcast releases, and educate yourself through our free course releases on YouTube. It all starts at cinematographyforactors.com. And if you like this episode, consider leaving a review to make it easier for other listeners to find us.